I think a good practice that I've been sort of unconsciously doing for a while, especially after devoting some time to mindfulness and getting deeper into the sort of aspects of awareness, is just one simple sentence, and that is, what's the point, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic. You can be angry, you can lash out, you can even drive after them in some crazy high speed pursuit. But what's the point? What's the point? What's the point in getting angry? What's the point in cursing them? What's the point in getting so stressed? And that's something I kind of ask myself. I'm driving in the car, someone cuts me off. I feel a little bit of, I guess, annoyance, a little bit of anger. And then I say, what's the point? What am I going to get out of it? What am I going to gain from this? And that can be applied to a lot of different things. You could ask yourself, what's the point? And this is sort of ties into the concept of self sabotage. And really, what it's founded in is a sense of unconsciousness. Because if you could become conscious enough to see that the temporary emotions you feel don't have to have such an impact on you, all you have to do is come back into a more aware and conscious mindset and say, what's the point? What is the point? What's the point in arguing with this person? What's the point in getting in a screaming match? What's the point in trying to convince them of something they don't want to believe? What's the point in trying to prove to them I am who I say I am and not who they think I am? What is the point? And this is what happens is a lot of people, you're just placing your energy in the wrong things. Who cares if that person said something? Who cares? You're not going to gain anything from going back and forth with them. You're not going to gain anything from getting revenge. I know the more philosophic way of looking at it and the more sort of philosophical way of phrasing it is, revenge won't free you, or kindness is a virtue, or, you know, in that show Vinland Saga, they say, I have no enemies. But all those things are true, but in the same right, what are you going to gain from that? What are you going to gain? At the very most, what you will gain from getting revenge or evening the score on somebody is you're going to get a temporary feeling of satisfaction, very temporary feeling. And then that temporary feeling will be immediately followed by, did I really just dedicate all this time just for that? It doesn't even feel that good. You know what would feel so much better and so much more freeing is going about your life, is taking that almost anger, frustration that you feel and placing it in somewhere positive. Because there's genuinely no point in doing anything else. And this also kind of plays into the role of forgiveness too. This is sort of the more brutal and, I guess, not psychological way of looking at it in saying, what's the point in not forgiving? What do you gain from not forgiving? Okay, so if you don't forgive, at best, nothing changes. At worst, you suffer every day thinking about what happened or thinking about that person or living in anger or living in resentment. On the flip side, if you just choose to forgive or even just choose to practice forgiving, you can move on with your life. You can get rid of the emotional turmoil that you feel inside you. You can remove whatever person or whatever situation from your mind. And you say, I'm going to take this energy and I'm going to place it in something that will have a compounding beneficial gain for my life and my enjoyment of life. And that's why when people ask me, how do I forgive? Well, first you need to make the choice, right? It can be very, very hard to forgive simply off merit alone. Because the truth of the matter is, yeah, they may have been wrong. I'm not going to say objectively wrong because, objectively there's no sort of principle that we can call upon. But, subjectively, in a human common sense sort of way, they could have been wrong. They could have done something wrong. So if you're trying to forgive them off the merit of them what they were doing was not wrong or what they did wasn't that bad, you're never going to get there, and rightfully so. Rather, you should forgive from the point of there's nothing else to do. There's no other set of behaviors and models of thinking and processing that are worthwhile rather than just practicing forgiving, rather than just teaching our mind to forgive. There's nothing else to do. It's either that or we suffer. It's either we feel the discomfort of trying to forgive every day, of using that energy that we feel inside of us and placing it somewhere positive. We go through that, or we go through the same sort of suffering and resentment and anger that's been living inside of us for however many days, months, or years. And it's not easy, of course. Both are going to take time. You know, in any case, time will probably heal most things, right? So the concept is not, will it pass? Of course it will pass. Everything passes. It's all temporary. It will pass. Time is the best healer. But we want to speed things up. We want to enjoy life rather soon. We want to enjoy life now, not later. So how do we speed up the process? And that's why we do everything that we do. That's why we heal. That's why we do shadow work. That's why we get in touch with our inner child. And that's why we do all of these sort of psychological healing methods, is because we want to feel better now. We don't want to wait for time to run its course, because it will. So if you need that safety net, time will run its course. But if we wait for time to run its course, our entire lives might slip away. So that's not the best method. And I guess the overwhelming question now is how? How would I practice forgiving someone? And the answer is probably quite complex, because if you're looking at it from the way that I'm looking at it, it's almost as if you're allowing yourself to forget, right? Because what forgetting does is it shows our mind that there isn't a sense of urgency on a given topic and on a set of emotional embedded thoughts, right? So if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say is the more basic and practical approach is, in a sort of conversational style, we can try to see things from their perspective. We can almost put ourselves in their shoes. But in my opinion, I don't even know if that's necessary, because there are some people that we will not understand why they did the things they did. And if we're trying to understand why they did the things that they did from our perspective, especially our subjective perspective, we might just be sort of running in circles, chasing our own tail. The way I typically go about it is I don't try to understand them. I see them as separate. They made their own choices. They are in charge of their own behaviors. And I'm actually going to focus on the feeling that I have inside of me. How do I make peace and how do I make do with the feelings that I'm experiencing, rather than trying to justify what has happened in some sort of positive, consequential way? Because a lot of events in our life, we can see that even though that they were bad in the moment, that they helped us in the long term. But when it comes to someone else doing something, I think trying to understand why they did that is a little bit of, it's almost a bit pointless, because humans, there's 8 billion humans. People do bad things, and people will do bad things for apparently no reason. So I think when we try to come at it from that angle, we're using our mind too much. And what we should be using is a sort of intuitive body feeling, right? We could think back to the situation. We could think of that person that we're holding hate for, we're holding anger for, and we can just practice letting it go. We take deep breaths and we let it go. And if until then we struggle to let that feeling go, if it permeates in our day to day, what we can do is transmute it, right? So we can use it as fuel to advance our lives, to self improve, as motivation for your passion, making a song, writing, dancing, painting, whatever it may be. If it's a sport, use it as fuel. You use it as motivation and inspiration. You don't say that anger is fueling me. You say that the energy that I'm experiencing from that situation or from that person is giving me the sort of momentum and movement, and I'm using that momentum and movement in a different direction. And by doing that, we actually show the brain that it's not the situation that we're holding on to, it's the feeling. And when we use that feeling in other ways, the brain also learns from this and it says, okay, we don't need to keep reminding our human of the very many ways in which this person or that situation is still affecting their lives. We just need to make the feeling apparent. And then once you grow a relationship with the feeling and you start to learn almost to become desensitized and sort of used to that feeling, and you get better at feeling that feeling and then putting it somewhere else instead of going in circles with your own mind trying to justify what happened, we grow from this and we benefit because now we're using the energy of what happened to fuel better things in our life. In our life. It's a little bit of a mispronunciation. I mispronounce sometimes, but you guys know what I'm saying.